Hi guys, welcome back to the shop. Hey, today I'm going to do just kind of a discussion about the oiling systems, the Suzuki versus the Yamaha, and how one lends itself to premix better than the other one. And actually on the Suzuki, you're really playing Russian roulette if you premix. I know there's going to be a lot of controversy with this, and a lot of people get by with it. But I'm going to show you some stuff, and I think after I show this to you, you'll understand why if you're going to premix a Suzuki, you're going to have to do some other things. And you know, just to let you know, I'm not an expert on this. I've worked in bike shops growing up, and I've messed with some of these old bikes for a long time. I've still got a lot to learn, and I'm not. This video is not going to tell you how to modify something so that it will be 100% okay. It's not going to tell you how to rebuild an oil pump or anything like that. I'm just going to go over some of the basics, and that way maybe you'll get a little better idea of what you're messing with, and maybe you shouldn't do some things, i.e. premix. Okay, let's get on with this. I'll get you overhead so you can kind of see some of the stuff I've got laid out here. Okay, I've got the Suzuki over here on the left and the Yamaha on the right. This is a TC 125 Suzuki, I don't know, about a 72 or 3. This is a 71 Yamaha AT1 125. So they're both 125s, and I'm just gonna, I think at first I'm gonna kind of tell you how this system works on the Suzuki, then we're going to go to the Yamaha, and then we're going to show a comparison. So let me get this out of my way. Okay. The left side, actually it's the right side if you're sitting on the bike. Maybe I should clarify that by going clutch side, mag side. That's what I'll do. The mags, or the clutch side on the Suzuki, the main bearing right here never sees any mixed fuel at all. Your seal is right here on the inside, and it is sealing the transmission oil out and sealing the premix or the fuel mixture, let's say, in. And on this side there's a plate that actually goes over the top of this, but you can see this little trail goes right here. There's a hole in the plate, goes right over right here. You can kind of see it on the bearing. And this main bearing here, crank bearing, is oiled by your transmission. So it never sees fuel mixture at all unless the seal goes out. So that's almost a non, you don't even hardly care about that side because it takes care of itself. Now on this side, you've got the seal here, and you've got your oil injection for the main bearing right here. For the fuel, it's right here. And if you'll look, the oil is injected into here and comes into this little trail and comes up and goes into the cylinder right here. And then it keeps going up until it gets to the intake port. Then as the gas comes through with the carburetor, the oil is there and it's mixing it as it goes into the the combustion chamber. Otherwise, it's pre-mixing it for you right here. But the main bearing is being oiled only by oil. I'm sure there's a little bit of premix that gets to it, but not a lot. Most of it is going right in here, and it's a separate entity almost. If you look inside here now, I'm hoping I can get this to where you can see everything. You can see right here, there's a little trail, and right there is the opening for the squirter line right there. So the oil is coming straight in here, and the bearing on the Suzuki has got a shield on it, like this right here. And that will go this way into the case. So the oil is coming in on the back side of this, and it's being directed this way. Then comes I call it a slinger. I don't know that that's really the right term, but if I can get that back out of there. There. These two go together. You've got the slinger on the crankshaft, and you've got this spacer. And then this goes on, and I won't be able to push it all the way down, but this piece here will actually go on the inside of this, what I'm calling the slinger. So you can see there's very little area for premix to get to that bearing. Now, when I worked at the Suzuki shop in my teens, early 20s, if we were running Suzukis for race purposes, and you were going to premix, you remove this, and you remove this. This just pulls out of the bearing. Now these bearings are getting real tough to find anymore. The last one I could get one for the 125. They're very expensive. I want to say they're almost 40 bucks. But the 250s and maybe even the 400, I'm not sure whether they use the same one or not. But I know the 250, they're not available anymore. So if you're going to use this, you're going to have to try to remove this shield from this bearing and install it on your new bearing. Can be done. You just got to be careful. But anyhow, you would remove that shield and this spinner. And then once you do that, you need to increase the thickness of this with another shim, the thickness of this one. Because that's part of your distance, your play like this. Okay. Now that you kind of see how those two work together, there's another issue that Suzuki has, and if you're really wanting to make these things a full-out race bike, you're going to have to do some drilling. Now let me just, before I get into the drilling part, let me show you a little bit on the Yamaha. But I just wanted to show you real quick the oil pump for the Suzuki. The lever's missing off this one. It looks a little bit different, and really these things are very reliable. I've heard of them going out, but I personally have never had one go out. And the same with the Yamahas. Usually it's somebody messing with one that don't know what they're doing. That's the problem. But these are very reliable units. Now, let me show you the Yamaha real quick, and then we'll go over a comparison of both. Okay, this side, you'll have to envision that it has a seal here. I've already pulled the seals out of this one. But there would be a seal here, and this one, you can change this seal if you need to without splitting the case. That's a good thing about the Yamaha. The Suzuki, you cannot. It's on the inside here, so you must split the case. So if you've got a clutch side seal, go out on a Yamaha and it's you're getting a lot of oil consumption and it's sucking oil out of the transmission, you can change this one. Bearings, you're going to have to go in here for. Now, on the Yamaha, you can see this is something different than the Suzuki has. See, you got holes right here. And they go in at an angle. This one is a little bit smaller for some reason. My drill bit won't go in there, but it's the same thing. It goes in at an angle, and it's going right here. You can see the end of the drill bit. So that's feeding directly into your main bearing. So what I wanted to get across to you on the Suzuki, you really need to drill those passages if you're going to convert this to premix. And it can be done. You just, see this one here is where the main bearing is fed by the oil line here. So you could do the same thing by drilling at an angle into just in front of the bearing here. Kind of split the difference between where the bearing is and where the seal is here. Just like here. This is as far as you would have to go. And you might have to trench this a little bit like this. But if you really want to premix this and not have any problems with it, you're going to need to drill these holes also, in both sides. And one thing that I'm not sure whether I can show you this. Okay. When you've got the cases together, you only have maybe 20 or 30 thousandths, if that, over here on either side. I can't get this together because then I'd have to get a puller to take it apart. But it's, some people say, well, you've got the clearance between the crankshafts and the halves. You're always going to, if you're premixing, you're always going to get oil to the rod bearing. That's not the issue. The issue is the crank bearing, and it's the one on the magneto side. You are going to have this clearance here. It's small, but you do have it. So it will get there if you remove this and the slinger from the crankshaft. But if you're full out racing these things, flat track, road race, anything that's very high RPM for a lot of time, to make this reliable, you're going to have to drill the passages in the transfer area right here into your main bearings. It's just the only way to do it safely. And I know people out there say, hey, I pre-mixed mine, I haven't had any trouble. I get it. And I know that there are people that can probably run them for 50 years and never have trouble. I would go out there and I'd burn it up on the first weekend out. So I'm just telling you to be safe, that these are some of the steps that you need to consider. I guess enough said about that. So let's take a look at the Yamaha. Okay, again, these are together, and you have a oiling hole here on both sides, goes straight to your main bearing, plus you're going to have the few thousandths between the crankshaft and the case for oil and fuel mixture to get in there. Now you'll see that there's an absence of any ports here for the oiling system. This is a breather port. On these models of Yamaha, you have a line that goes from the pump, which is on the other side from the Suzuki. Suzuki pumps are right here on the magneto side on this particular model, and the Yamahas are going to be in the side cover on the clutch side. Now, the Yamaha system at this time, at this era, was basically the only thing it was doing was pre-mixing it for you. The oil line went into the intake manifold on the cylinder. Let me see if I can come up with one here. Okay, here's a 125, and you can see the port right here. And it's, I'm just sure you probably can't see up in there, but it comes in right here from the pump and dumps right into here. There's a little hole, but I doubt if you can see it. Some of them actually have a brass rod with a hole in it that comes more out into the opening a little bit. I think most of the piston port ones have that. This is a reed valve. But anyhow, it's dumping your oil in here and just basically pre-mixing it while it's running. So the Yamaha of this era actually lends itself a lot easier to pre-mix than the Suzuki does. The Suzuki, I think, is a far superior system if you leave it alone. You're getting straight oil to that mag side main bearing, and you're not here. Everything's pre-mix on these, but it's, like I said, the machine is pre-mixing it for you. And there are no things on the crankshaft, spinners or slingers or anything that you want to call it on the Yamaha. Your main bearing is going up, of course, in the same area. You've got a seal that runs just beyond it. And there again, both bearings are oiled by the fuel. On the Suzuki, only the magneto side is oiled by fuel at all, but it also has the main bearing port for itself too. Okay, now another thing that I really like about the Yamaha pump is here's the difference. Here's the Suzuki and here's the Yamaha. Let me get you a little closer. The Yamaha pump has a provision for purging, for bleeding, and that's this little dial right here. This is made for you once you've rebuilt something or broken the seal on the oil, then you can just come in here with your finger and spin this. It tells you to spin it this way, and you can purge your lines. And what I usually do is I just where the line goes to the cylinder, I loosen that bolt, and I'll just sit there and turn it while I hold the throttle wide open. And that way the maximum amount of oil is getting up there You can see it pumping action there. So that will purge that all the way to your engine. That way you know that you have oil there. Now on the Suzuki, what I've done is some of the ports, this is where both of your lines go, one for your main bearing, the other one for your cylinder. And some of these screws have a little bitty screw in the middle of them. If you take that screw out, and if you've watched any of my other videos, you've seen me, I just use a regular squirt can like this with a rubber piece on it. And with that, you don't even have to take the lines off. You can just take that little screw out of the middle and start pumping it up until you watch the oil go up the line. Now some of them don't have that little screw, and those you will have to take that whole thing out. And I kind of leave the line on there and just push against it to hold it in place while I pump oil into it on those to purge them. And there again, you can hold the lever wide open and everything happens quicker. So just something to kind of consider. Now, another thing that has to do with the differences in the oil system is on the Suzukis. Let me get something else real quick. Well, I thought I had a set of lines handy here, but I don't. This is the inlet for the oil. This is coming from the tank. Then these go to the engine. And at the very end, the engine end of those lines is a valve, a check valve. It's got a little ball in there, and it allows oil to go that way toward the engine, but it doesn't allow it to seep back to the pump. And that way you don't lose your prime when you're not running the engine. Now on the Yamahas, the check valve actually is in here, and this is there's a port. This is where the oil line goes here, and there is a spring and a ball in here. So the check valve is in the pump on the Yamaha, and on the engine end of the lines of the Suzuki. So I guess just to recap this a little bit, and I'm sure I've missed something, but I think I've covered most of the basics. Again, the Yamaha has got the direct ports in the transfer area of the crankcase, goes straight to the main bearings, and that is all premix. So the premix is coming in from the intake manifold on the cylinder, and fuel's coming in with it from the carburetor, and it's mixing as it goes in here, and then it goes on down to the bearings, and everything is lubricated by the fuel mixture, Yamaha. The Suzuki, you've got the line coming in here to the main bearing, line right here coming in for the piston and con rod. And actually, it's all this is, once it comes in here, it's doing the same thing as the Yamaha is. It's coming up to the intake and is mixing the fuel right there. But none of it is getting to this bearing. It's being fed by the oil that's in the clutch side cover. And there's probably some getting to the crankshaft main bearing on the mag side, but not much, because as this coat pulls up, it's almost sealing this off. So just some just a little information and some visual aids here so that you can kind of see what the process is, how it, it's certainly not how the whole system works, but this is why you can have problems if you try to premix a Suzuki. So I think I've about covered it. I'm sure I've missed something, but just a little food for thought. Okay guys, there you have it. Just a little show and tell, and I had both these cases laying here, thought maybe I'd go over that. I continually see people that premix a Suzuki. Like I said, I'm sure is very controversial. I've known people that have done it without doing anything that I just talked about and have never lost a main bearing. But I think that to be safe, this is how you're going to need to do it. And it's how we did it in the past. So thanks for going along on the ride. See you next video.